What's up, nerds? So it's been an interesting time in the gacha gaming sphere as of late because there's been a lot of drama going on lately, and in more ways than one. Even I've gotten myself wrapped up in all this because Tectone reacted to one of my recent Genshin Impact videos, and I've been getting a lot of negativity in that original video, even though all I was trying to do was make the game better. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the new character preview that just dropped for Misha, the 4-star ice destruction character in Honkai Star Rail. And thank God we have Honkai Star Rail right now, because it's a breath of fresh air amongst all the BS that we've been dealing with over the last few weeks. So let's take a look at this new interesting kit and abilities for this character, because I think a lot of people are going to end up wanting to build this character because not everybody has Jing Liu. So let's take a look. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at this character's kit here. So as you can see, we have the traces and, other abilities and such like that, but I want to go over the ultimate first because, in my opinion, after reading the talent and the skill for this character, it seems like this character's kit completely revolves around their ultimate. So I wanted to show you guys that first. And I do think that this ultimate animation is actually pretty darn cool. I love goofy stuff, and the fact that this bellboy is wandering around with a bunch of luggage and then accidentally dump it on the enemies, that's a cool animation to me. And this skill animation is really mid. This is the animation you'd see on like a basic attack, in my opinion. I think that is practically lazy of the developers to make a skill animation like that, but what do I know? I'm just some idiot on the internet. Now let's take a look at this ultimate. It has a certain number of hits per action by default. And by the way, you can raise the amount of hits per action using Misha's skill and talent. So you can reach a max level of hits per action with this ultimate based on that, but we'll get to that in just a moment. First, it uses one hit to deal ice damage equal to a single target enemy. I know that seems weirdly worded, but it seems like this is the first ultimate of this type. And I think that is worded correctly, because after the target enemy, the remaining hits per action start to default to new random enemy targets, as it says here. Then the rest of the hits each deals ice damage equal to a single random enemy. So the way I perceive this is, depending on the amount of hits per action that you've built up before using the ultimate, it will first hit the target and then start switching to random enemies over and over and over until you run out of hits per action. And just before each hit lands, there is a chance to freeze the target, lasting for 1 turn. And I believe we have a base chance for this to happen based on one of the traces. We'll get to that again in just a moment. When frozen, the target cannot take action and takes ice damage at the beginning of each turn, which will be valuable to your damage overall. There is a hits per action limit for the ultimate. After the ultimate is used, its hits per action will be reset to the default level. And that's not really a problem, because it does take time to build your ultimate back up. And during that time, you can, again, use Misha's skill and talent to build back up to the max hits per action limit. So I think it's good that it resets, because it doesn't really, otherwise they'd have to give you like a different kind of cap. So it makes sense that this happens. There's nothing really wrong with that, in my opinion. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the skill and the talent so that we can truly understand how this character works beyond just the ultimate. So let's take a look at the talent first. As you might notice, this is action animation for Black Swan, not Misha. Like, why is that? Well, Misha is over here in the corner because Black Swan, in this situation, is one of Misha's allies. They want to depict that other characters on your team are actually who trigger this talent. For every 1 skill point allies consume, Misha's next ultimate delivers more hits per action, and Misha generates his energy. So this is a very, very interesting talent, because it completely revolves around the actions of your allies, not on the actual character itself. And this is good because you get energy regeneration built into the character's kit, which helps get to the ultimate quicker, so that you're not sitting around with the max hits per action for too long before you can just use the ultimate, which is nice. So this character might benefit from having an energy regen rope or other relics. I don't know that for certain right now. I can't properly theorycraft that until the character comes out, so stay tuned for that. But let's take a look at this skill with this super mid animation. It increases the hits per action for Misha's next ultimate. and it deals ice damage equal to a single target enemy and a certain percentage of ice damage equal to the adjacent targets. So again, this is kind of worded very weirdly, but this is a blast damage type of effect, and it's going to hit 3 enemies at the same time, which you can kind of see if you're paying attention in this animation. This enemy right here takes a hit, as well as the enemy over here off to the side, and then of course the main target in the middle. So everything, like you can see the skill, the talent, and the ult, it all works off of the same type of system where you're trying to build up these hits per action and then crack them off with the ultimate. And in my opinion, the way this character works is you basically want to freeze the enemies and then keep them frozen as much as possible. So Misha might actually be an interesting character to run dual DPS team comps with and not have to use a healer or a tank, because if your enemies are frozen, they can't hurt you. So this is a very, very interesting character because for a while, people were running March 7th, solo sustain March 7th, and running high effect hit rate and freezing the enemies. Again, if the enemies are frozen, they can't hurt you. But we might be able to do this with a DPS character. This is an interesting situation because I first read this kit and I was thinking that Misha might not be all that great, but now I'm thinking about it from the mindset of somebody that is running 0 sustain. And if you're running dual DPS 0 sustain, you might be able to use Misha to freeze the enemies and basically not allow them to deal you damage if they're constantly frozen. So that's an interesting setup that might be viable. It's really uncertain to know how good this character will be, from what we've been given so far. But, we'll do some testing once the character comes out to see how good they are. Obviously, they have a basic attack that deals ice damage to a single target enemy. And funny enough, this basic attack animation is even better than the skill animation, in my opinion. But that's just me. So let's take a look at the talent. The traces. Well, first let's take a look at the technique, I guess. I'm all over the place here. Sorry about that. After using the technique, it creates a dimension that lasts for a certain amount of time, and enemies caught in the dimension are inflicted with Dream Prison and stop all their actions. Upon entering battle against enemies afflicted with Dream Prison, it increases the hits per action for Misha's next ultimate by a certain number of hits. And of course, as usual, only one dimension created by allies can exist at the same time. So, depending on your team composition, you may or may not want to use this technique because, like I said, you can only have one dimension active at a time. So any other character you have on your team that can also create a dimension, such as Dr. Ratio, you would not want to probably use this instead of using Dr. Ratio's dimension, because whichever your most recently used dimension is, that's the one that is actually active. So just keep that in mind. Now let's take a look at these traces. And you see what I mean, by the way, with like this entire character's kit revolves entirely around its ultimate. So let's keep going because the traces also revolve around the ultimate. Before the ultimate's first hit lands, it increases the base chance of freezing the target. This is the hint that I wanted to tell you guys about, and this is the base chance that I was talking about. This is a hint from Hoyoverse. What have I done? So before the ultimate's first hit lands, it increases the base chance of freezing the target. If you have a base chance, you can build up your effect hit rate, and it increases your odds of landing the freeze. In fact, you can raise your effect hit rate so high, it guarantees that you will be able to freeze the enemies. If this said fixed chance, that would be bad, because when it's a fixed chance, you cannot increase the probability that the enemies will be frozen. So this lets us know that if we can build a high enough effect hit rate on Misha, we will guarantee our freezes. So this basically, like I was saying about the March 7th comparison, means that you might be able to run this as potentially your sustain. Misha, interestingly, might be able to solo sustain on teams. That's kind of wild. And let's go even further. When using the ultimate, it increases the effect hit rate. Da-ding! Lasting until the end of the ultimate's current action. So there you go. You get some built-in effect hit rate. And just so that you guys are aware, this is a main trace, not a sub trace. So when you're building the character, a sub trace like this does not show up in your stats menu. This will only take effect in battle. and it only takes effect when you use the ultimate. So just keep that in mind. Pay attention to the amount of effect hit rate you get with this, because you might not have to have the guaranteed effect hit rate while building. You might get enough to get your guaranteed freezes with the help of this talent in the middle of battle. Sorry, not talent, but a trace in the middle of battle. So let's read this last trace here. When dealing damage to frozen enemies, it increases your crit damage. So again, you want to freeze your enemies with this character, keep them frozen as long as possible, and you will even get increased crit damage. So this character is built all around freezing your enemies and dealing increased damage to them. This, in my opinion, is going to be an actual solo sustain option for teams. This character can't heal you. This character can't prevent damage from being taken like Fu Xuan can. But if your enemies are frozen, they can't hurt you. Keep that in mind. This is basically how March 7th solo sustain teams would work in the past, and I think this is going to be a new replacement for March 7th as a solo sustain, and this might even be a meta sustain character if we can achieve the proper build with the character. Again, if your enemies are frozen, they can't hurt you, and Misha also deals damage. More damage than a more damage than a sustain would be able to deal. So I'm liking this kit so far. At first, I was like, Misha, I don't know. What you even going to be doing out here? You know what I mean? Like, Jesus. But I'm actually really excited about this character now after reading this kit. This is a fun, interesting kit. If we can do something fun and goofy, like run this as our sustain character. Anyways, I've been yapping a whole lot. If you thought this was interesting or helpful in any way, shape, or form, consider leaving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in patch 2.0 later.